small business, you can probably use every dollar you can find. But did you know that you may already have those dollars sitting there and you're not even using them? Most small business owners don't realize their shelves are hiding thousands of dollars in locked up cash. Products that turn slowly may look harmless, but they quietly strangle your cash flow and limit your ability to invest in new opportunities. In this episode, we uncover the hidden money sitting in your inventory and show how to free it. You'll learn how to identify dead stock, understand why even popular products can drain profit margins, and how to discover practical steps to rebalance your mix. By the end, you'll see inventory not as stuff on shelves, but as a bank account waiting to be unlocked. A lot of this is about digital marketing, and I have an excellent example from our business that I will bring out. But ultimately, Matt Hansen teaches, and that's how I got to know him, e-commerce, digital marketing, how to market online, how to sell online, how to approach being online. And one of these is an e-commerce inventory is still inventory, and a lot of people make a huge mistake with that.
Yeah, this topic actually stems from one of our listeners I was talking to yesterday, and we were talking about inventory and how things move on, whether it's in retail or whether it's online. And we went back to kind of a story when I had my e-commerce brand and we were selling. We came out of the gates and we wanted to be everything. Right. We wanted to be the one-stop shop for every single thing that you could buy for this one brand. And in doing so, what we realized was we had an entire 1,200 square foot warehouse of product. And I would say 80% of that very rarely turned, or very rarely moved, right? So sold is what we're talking about. What you would see is the top products would turn multiple times a day. But then you had this 1, 2, 3, or in this case, probably 50 items that just sat on the shelves waiting for the one person to buy it every year or every 3 months or whatever it was. And it took me a while, right? I'll admit I don't know everything in marketing, but there are lots of lessons that I've learned through the years, and this was one of the lessons that I've learned. If you try to be everything, money is going to sit, right? So what we had was all of this product that would sit on the shelves until that one person came along and bought it finally. And then we'd reorder it and it would sit again for however long. What I didn't realize was for every dollar that I was spending in ad dollars, I was generating more revenue back. So instead of having, this one product or these 30 products that were sitting there with money invested in them, just sitting on a shelf, I could have taken that same amount of money, put it into the ones that turn every single day, and sold a lot more and made a lot more revenue, right? So that was one of those life learning lessons that I just didn't know until I got into it, because then you look at the P&L and all of a sudden I'm realizing we can turn more product if we just liquidate some of these things. That's a good life lesson to learn. Probably not the way I did, but it's a good life lesson to understand. So as you look around your store, as you look at your e-commerce brand, one of the first questions that I always ask people is, what is it that sells? What are your top 3? And then what has been sitting forever, or what's, maybe sells every so often, and get rid of the stuff that doesn't sell or sells rarely, and focus on the things that sell often, turn quickly. And I mean, that's basic sense, but a lot of people don't think about that. And I wanted to kind of talk about that today because I think it's a lesson that I see in small businesses all the time. They want to be everything, but they don't realize, just focus on the things that make you the most money and sit there, because you're going to turn a lot more product, a lot more money, instead of just being, drowning in inventory.
A lot of people like to put X's on this stuff. What is, this is a 6X. This is 1X a month, 1X a week. This is 6X a week or daily, 1X a day, 6X a day. How do you conceptualize that?
So, again, going back to the conversation I had yesterday with one of our listeners, they would sell all day long, and they feel like they're busy, right? So they're going through the day, and they feel like they're busy, and they're selling. But in the end, they look at the number or the amount of revenue that comes in at the end of the day, and it's not where they thought it would be. It's really low. So then you start to say, okay, well, I've got two products here. I've got product A that if I sell it, I'm going to make $5. I have product B over here. If I sell it, I'm going to make $100. It's a whole lot easier to sell one of the $100 profit versus 10 of the other one, right? Or 20 of the other one. And when we look at these things, it's about energy, it's about time, it's about what turns, right? What turns fast. So one example that I always give is we used to do a lot of furniture in our home decor store, and we would buy the wholesale. We didn't buy top of the line furniture. It was decorative furniture. I mean, over time, give it 5 years, 10 years, whatever, it's going to break down and all those types of things. But it was decorative for that reason, the fact that people will change their decor over and over and over again through the years. But we would buy this stuff for anywhere between $100 and $250, and then we'd mark it up anywhere between 2.3 to 2.6, right? So, let's say you get a $100 piece of furniture, you multiply that by 2.5, and that's where you're at with your price. So we would play with this, and at 2.3, we realized that it was too cheap because we couldn't keep the furniture in. It was selling like crazy. And then we went to 2.4, 2.5. When we started to get to like 2.6, that's when sales started to slow. So we knew kind of that sweet spot of where we needed to be. But the question becomes, right? So if you have, let's say you have 15 pieces of furniture in a store and you got to move it, you got to liquidate it. We're getting late in the year, right? We're let's call it December 10th. As we're heading into the lull of January and February, people aren't necessarily shopping. You can pull those prices back down to the 2.3 and they're going to fly off the shelves, right? So it's all of this stuff that we have to look at, but inventory and the dollars that are sitting in there it's a hidden bank account that we don't often think about, right? So you mentioned digital marketing, and we talk a lot about it here. If I've got $100, $150, $200 sitting in a piece of furniture, what does that equate to in ad dollars that I can put out there? On social, that's a lot of money, right? So we can do relatively a decent campaign for $200 on a local level. So it's sitting there, and it's sitting there for 6 months, or I can take that $200 and put it into some kind of advertising that's going to drive a lot more business through the door. So you have to look at it in a various different ways. But inventory as a whole, I would say look around your store, look around your e-commerce platform, whatever it is, and ask yourself what's not moving and how much money is sitting there. And one of my favorite people is Marcus Lemonis. I saw him last year at Rally. And, you see this with him all the time. He's always talking about, why do you have all thousands and thousands of dollars of inventory sitting here when it should be working in your business, not in a basement or whatever it may be. So I agree 100% with him on that. I think you should have just enough inventory that you can reorder, just in time, or, maybe you're out of stock for a little bit.
Is he as abrasive as he is on TV?
He is, he's relatable, right? So he's a business person. And
explain who he is.
Marcus Lemonis, he basically oversees Camping World. He's now in Bed Bath & Beyond, redoing that. He's had The Profit Show. He's got this new show called The Fixer and all these other things. But, Marcus is an interesting person because he expects certain things, and he's got kind of these principles that he lives by. So no matter who he talks to, he will dissect your business really easily. And one of the things that he always dissects is like, what is going on behind the scenes here? And he'll look at inventory and who's important and, where the money's coming from. And, he's a good person to understand what he's, I don't want to say a role model, but somebody to follow to really understand what he does. But, I look at the inventory. It's just money sitting there that you can use.
All right. So you also mentioned Rally. You saw him at Rally.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Rally is it's actually next week. So we're going down. Rally is kind of like the entrepreneurial hub of the Midwest, and it's in Indianapolis next week. And Mr. Wonderful is going to be down there sharing some of his insights and that. But Rally is just it's basically a pitch competition in five different niches, and it's really cool. I mean, you start to see some really unique product that's going on down there, but it's the future of where the Midwest is heading.
So just, I don't know, we haven't had a chance to talk, but are you aware that Sam got notified yesterday he's pitching?
Oh, he's pitching? Sweet.
Isn't that crazy? I mean,
that's
they
awesome.
get hundreds or they get thousands of submissions.
Wow.
And for I think it started out as like a third alternate, second alternate.
Nice.
So I think he's number 5 on the list. I mean,
well, see, now I know two companies that are pitching.
So they got tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, Jed TV Sports Network will be pitching at Rally as one of the 5 companies in the sports tech field.
Are they on Wednesday or Thursday?
I don't know.
You should know this.
I'm just, the main owner, and they're running it, and they're going to pitch. We don't, I think the $1 million that you get or whatever, I mean, our expectations are low for that part of it,
right.
But our expectations are high about learning from people like Marcus Lemonis and Mr. Wonderful, and they gave us a table, so these guys are going to sit there all day, and all these investors will come around. And I told them, I go, when these people come around, ask them and give them your elevator pitch, and they'll poke holes in it left and right. Now, I went to TED Sports last week, and that exact same thing happened. People are like, all right, I got your app here. What, let's see. You need to do this, you need to do that. And usually it's like, a lot of know-it-alls, but every once in a while there's, have you thought about this? And I'm like, dang. Well, one of the things that you brought up, and I want everybody to understand that how this can affect your small to medium-sized business. It's not just these specific things, but it's more of a philosophy that Matt Hansen, I really admire. I'm a Matt Hansen follower, just like you are if you're listening to this. And it is a personal thing that Matt told me one time, and it has rung with me, is like, how do I get all the things done that I do? And what was your answer to that?
Systems.
Systems?
Yep.
But the word no.
Oh, it's funny you say that, because last night I was, we have this nonprofit that was using our lab for this incubator idea that they're doing. And one of the instructors there, her flaw, as she said last night, was she says yes to everything. And a long time ago, I had a mentor to me that basically said, you need to say no to anything that doesn't get you excited. And it was funny, right after she had said yes to, this is her, kryptonite, somebody asked her about making a T-shirt, and she's like, yeah, I can do that. And I said, that's a horrible way to say no. And, she's like, just kind of laughed about it. But systems and saying no to things that aren't interesting to you, that don't get you excited, will free up your time and effort. I say no probably 85% of the time to things that are presented to me. And it's just because it's not right now. And that's what I tell people is it's no for now, but maybe something in the future. But given the things that I'm doing right now, it's a no.
So extrapolate that, folks, and that is that I wouldn't say I'm a yes person, but I'm like, let's try this. I want to try everything. And if there's one thing I've learned from his classes at Purdue Northwest when I took them for the MBA, and then obviously for doing this podcast, we're on episode 75, it is an attitude of narrowing down. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You're talking about, all right, you want to put 1X on your shelves, or you want to put 6X? You want to put 1X on your website and people get lost? And oh my God, well, the real thing they want, the 6X, it's kind of hard to find and that kind of thing. So the other stuff is noise. And it is a direct, and I'll give you the example. We sell advertising here for local streaming sports, and it's booming. And we're selling it in, I think we have 24 different communities we represent now. And we were selling, ads to the local hardware store and the barbershop and the local dentist and that kind of thing. And it was taking up all of our time. And great, somebody just spent $2,000, they just spent $3,000 for the year, or small numbers, single digit thousands. And we went back and looked at that and how it was taking our time versus the regional advertiser that wanted to spend anywhere from 20 to 50. And we redid it and said, all right, we put everything online and said, if you want to spend, for one school or two schools, just got to go online and buy it. We'll process it, but it's out of the sales process. It's an online sales process. And we narrowed down to the larger regional business. And it was from this podcast, not that he said, hey, why don't you just sponsor, why don't you concentrate on the larger ones? But I was able to come, and our marketing people, they were able to come to that decision by understanding that you have to narrow down personally, and you have to narrow your business down to whatever excites you. And that excites us when we can go out and make a big sale that shows that people love our network and they want to give us money. And the littler ones need to be done online or at the local level with the school. And it's that philosophy that I want to bring up.
Yeah, focusing on larger things makes more sense, right? So if it's a larger client versus a small client. So I see this a lot with agencies, like marketing agencies, where when they start out, they take anyone that they can actually get, right? So you get all of the, let's call it two handfuls of clients that are paying you maybe $1,000, $2,000 a month and whatever, right? Okay, fine. But what you typically get with a smaller client is a lot of hand-holding. And you'll see that it doesn't matter what business you're in. The smaller the client, the more hand-holding, the more time they're going to suck from you, right? From a larger client, so if I'm dealing with somebody that's paying, from a local marketing agency, somebody that's paying you $100,000 a year, they're not calling you every moment saying, how's the ad doing and all that. They trust you to get the job done. I had 63 clients in a former agency that I worked for. We had $25,000 a piece, so each one of those clients had signed on the dotted line basically for strategy work. And it was funny because 25 grand to you or me is, it's a decent chunk of dollars, right? I would call them up and I'd say, okay, let's get you scheduled for your strategy sessions. This is how it's going to play out. And they're like, yeah, what is this 25,000 that we signed on? Like, it was added on, I don't even know what it is. And I thought that was funny because, 25,000 to a local company is a lot of marketing dollars. But, we were dealing with large Fortune 500 companies, 25,000 on top of, a $300,000, $400,000 process is nothing. It was just kind of this thing that was there. So from when we're looking at dollars, let's go back to the e-commerce idea that I was telling you about, is we would order 250 pieces of the top product that sold, and we'd order one or two of the least popular. That one or two would sit on the shelves forever, and that 250, we were out in 30 days, and we had to reorder. And I sit here today, and now mind you, this was 15 years ago when we were running this. I sit here today, and I still take that as a life lesson to say, why didn't I just order 750 or 1,000 pieces of this to have ready to go? Because we sold for 3-4 months, and I knew I would be able to sell it all, and just sell that instead of trying to hold on to that one lone piece that some random person is going to order from wherever they're from, right? Focus on the big things. Focus on the top 3 products that you have, and forget about the other stuff. Liquidate it somehow, some way, and get your money back out of it, and then put it into something that's going to sell.
In his classes, Matt Hansen likes to bring out percentages and ratios, and we don't necessarily go to them. But one of them that always stuck in your digital marketing classes is the 80-20 rule in terms of your inventory. Explain.
Yeah, so, doesn't matter what kind of business you're in, 80% 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your customers or your product or whatever it may be. I've calculated this in multiple businesses. It's always close. It may not be exactly 80-20. It may be, 78, whatever, right? But you're going to see this over and over and over again. So, look at what you are selling and understand if it's furniture, if it's ads, like what is it that you sell the most of, and go, how do I ramp that up? Or, we talk about the size of a client, right? So if I'm selling $100,000 contract over here, and I've got, let's take your HVAC friend, right? So I'm selling a $20,000 HVAC system versus a $49 checkup fee. Right? Like how many checkup fees of $49 do I have to get to that 1 or 2, 3 days of $20,000 HVAC that you just put in? So, that's what I mean. Like figure out how you spend less time, more profit, product turns faster, and get rid of the stuff that just sits and takes up your money.
It's all part of a philosophy, which we don't talk that much. It's mostly specifics, but one, personally, narrowing down to what excites you, and then I guess on the business side, focus, not narrowing, focus on what excites you and focus on what sells. Pretty easy philosophy.
Yeah.
And that will end our podcast. Please like us. Please go to Apple, Spotify, wherever it is. You may be listening on AM 1230, WJOB 104.7, or watching on our YouTube channel. Is that right? WJOB 1230. You can watch us by going to WJOB 1230. But we're on all the platforms, and it's gaining ground, and people are going along with the Matt Hansen philosophy. And the more you listen, the more you learn. So thanks for being with us, Matt. And thanks to you for being with us. And until next time, we'll see you later.